Good morning, and welcome to Mr. Peterson's science class and biology class. I wanted to take just a few minutes to kind of explain some of the things that are important to know about attending my class. First of all, with regard to science and biology, each of those classes is broken up into what we call essential learnings. And those are thought of as basically chapters. In eighth grade science, in first semester, we'll do the nature of science and chemistry. And then in second semester, we'll do global climate change, some weather, DNA, and genetics. In biology, this looks a little different. We focus, of course, specifically on biology units, and that's broken up into a lot more essential learnings. But basically, each essential learning begins with kind of like the clarifying statement as far as what we're going to be doing within that essential learning. We then kind of break down the essential vocabulary that students will need to understand in order to understand that clarifying statement. And then that clarifying statement is broken down into what we call our learning goals or learning objectives. And so this page is common for all of our essential learnings, both in science and biology. So if a student doesn't understand something, that is kind of the anchor then that we go back to as far as what exactly we're learning and studying for that particular day. Um, I understand it can get really confusing sometimes with all of the edu-speak, all the learning tools and technology that we use in school today. But to kind of make it as simple as I can for you, just think about Skyward and Canvas. Those are really the most important. And so Skyward is where grades are reported, and so we report progress through Skyward. So that's kind of the anchor. And then the way we deliver that content is in Canvas. So Canvas is the content management tool for content assignments and assessments. And then we report that out through Skyward. There's a lot of other tools that I'll use throughout the year. Brain pops, ed puzzles, gizmos, YouTube, these kinds of things. But those are just other tools for delivering the content. They're all anchored in Canvas. And, so again, as long as you understand how to get into Skyward and understand how to get into Canvas, you're golden. As far as tips to succeed, first of all would be the science notebook. We use that science notebook every single day, and that's where we put a lot of the content. So we take the content from Canvas and kind of transfer that into our science notebooks. What's important to remember about our science notebooks is in science, those can be used on quizzes. Can't be used on quizzes for biology, but they can for science. And so if a student has a good organized science notebook, literally they have all the answers right there, and they can use those on assessments. It's also important to understand that practice, homework and labs can be redone as many times as a student wants. I will provide feedback through Canvas in the form of a grade or, a rubric and so on. Those can be redone and those can be resubmitted. Even if they're late, they can be turned in until I have to report grades. So, at any time, if something were to happen, an absence or something like that, it can be redone. It can be done. It can be done late. Yes, all of that is true, and we really encourage kids to do that. I will leave those open until I have to report a grade. So I have to report a grade at midterm, and I have to report a grade at the end of the 9 weeks. And so I leave them open in Canvas, though, as long as I can until I need to close those and then report that grade into Skyward. Um, I think of this as a way of I'm reporting growth. I'm not reporting grades. So, I like to see when a kid um, maybe struggled on an assignment and then went back, redid it, showed growth, showed learning. And so I will definitely change that grade, improve that grade if it's within that grading period and I have the ability to do that. If I, have already submitted grades and those grades have already been reported into Skyward, I cannot go back and redo that. So be aware of those midterm and end of term grades every 9 weeks and so on. Another thing that I want to encourage parents to do is really just talk about school. I encourage parents to look at Skyward and look at Canvas together with their student. Don't just ask, do you have any missing assignments? I can tell you right now from experience, a lot of times kids will say, no, I'm good, and that's not true. And so a lot of times, when I meet with students in our connect time, I will have them open Skyward and we'll look at it together. We'll look at Canvas together. It just helps out as far as us looking at the same screen, explaining it to each other, and so on. And note that when you look at Skyward and you look at Canvas, the names of those assignments will match. And that's probably one of the best ways of determining, if there's a missing assignment in Skyward, has it been turned in Canvas? That's an important thing to know. My general routine is I will update grades first thing in the morning. I really get up early and I like to work in the morning. And so I will update grades every morning. And so about every 24 hours. And so if a kid turns in an assignment, you know, let's say at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m., I will have that graded by the following morning. So, I don't leave things sitting in Canvas to be graded. I think providing, prompt and specific feedback to students is essential. And then again, just another quick reminder that those science notebooks cannot be used on assessments in biology. Some other tech tips to kind of think about in Canvas is when you go into Canvas, you'll see that I have everything broken down into modules. Those are each of the essential learnings. And so those only show up as we get to that essential learning. So, they're always going to be up at the top is where those are going to be located. Other tools that will be within Canvas there's an online textbook. There's going to be a link to my planning calendar, my plan book, as well as links to Skyward and other study tools. And then when you get into each of those assignments, each of the assignments is broken down into a similar format. And those are, we start off with, again, those learning objectives. What is it we're going to be learning about that day? It's kind of the core idea. And then we'll have the content and material. So this is kind of the student task, or what do they have to complete? And then at the end of that, there'll be some check for understanding. It could be a short quiz. It could be a little assignment that they have to, turn in. It could be, just something that I can use to kind of check that they understood the assignment for that day. And then once it's submitted, it'll show up over here as the submission. So a lot of times parents will say, well, I didn't know if a kid had turned it in or not. It'll say up here if it's been submitted or not. And then the submission will be right here if it has been submitted. And any feedback that I provide will also be within that submission tab right there. So that is an important thing to look at. And then up here, whether it's been submitted or not is another important thing to look at. What am I going to be looking for when I grade that practice assignment or that homework? These are the things I'm looking for. Number one is, did the student completely do the assignment? Is the entire assignment completed? When they did that, did they demonstrate an understanding of the applied science concept? So, that's, did they demonstrate that they understood it? Would it be obvious to a classmate or a teacher that they understood it? And so, basically, I'm grading out of um, a 5 point system. So if they turn in anything, they're going to get a 3. If they turned in and did their best effort, but they might not have, completely understood everything, they're going to get a 4. And then, a 5 would be they hit all of these things. So they completed the entire assignment, they demonstrated and, good understanding, and it was pretty obvious that they understood it, and, put forth their best effort. And so most of the time, kids will get, a 4 or a 5. Sometimes if they didn't complete the entire assignment, they might get a 3. But remember, they can always go back and redo it. So just because they got a 3 out of 5 doesn't mean that that's their final assignment. That's their final, grade. They can redo the assignment. Oftentimes we'll go over it in class. Oftentimes, I'll maybe even provide a key. Those types of things are important for those kids to go back and teach themselves, those learning assignments. As far as tips within Skyward, oftentimes just check for missing assignments. Those will be up at the top of the page, and they will be zeros. A 0 means that student has not turned in anything, because remember, if they turn in anything, they get a 3. Um, we also have an assignment intervention policy. If a student has multiple missing assignments, that will take place during the school day and could result in Thursday, evening school, or even Friday evening school, depending on the seriousness and the number of missing assignments. In general, I'll only take about 2 grades per week that I will report into Skyward. And so when we look at reported grades, that'll be about 1 test or assessment, about 1 lab, and 6 to 7 practice assignments or homework assignments, about every 4.5 weeks, which, remember, so that would be up into the midterm, and then midterm up until the end of the 9 weeks. And so that would be a grading period, where the 9 weeks gets reported. As far as getting help for students, there's a lot of indirect ways. A lot of support material is within Canvas. There's the online textbook. Within Canvas, there are also study materials that I will provide in the form of games and flashcards and things like that, as well as different review videos, examples, grading keys, and things like that. Also, directly, I am available before school for free tutoring. Just, contact me, and I'm happy to sit down with students to do that, outside of the school day, or even in the school day. We have connect time where I can do that. And what we'll do basically is, a lot of times we'll just simply review the science notebook together, help students get those organized. I maintain my own science notebook, and so a lot of times I can just sit down and we can go over exactly what should be in their science notebook, as well as looking over practice assignments, lab data, and so on. Those are the types of things I'll do during my tutoring sessions. I can also do some test prep and just general organization with students if that is helpful. Lastly, as far as contacting me, I do have plans to send out weekly updates via Parent Square. Please just if you have questions, comments, watch those weekly updates, and then, you can post comments to those. Only I can see those. And so that's a great way to communicate. If you prefer email, my email address is available, as well as my voicemail. If you do send me a message within Parent Square, an email, or a voicemail, do expect a reply within 24 hours or less. Typically, I am pretty active after school with coaching and other activities. And so I will oftentimes reply to those in the morning, the following morning when I get up early, or if it is a voicemail, I'll probably have to wait until I have a planning period or something like that during the school day. So, just be aware of that I will contact you within 24 hours. So again, thank you so much for sticking it out to the end. Looking forward to a fantastic year. If you ever have any question, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me.